Today, we're going to finish up the valve lash and install the radiator in that 64 Dodge Dart. Let's get to it.
From the factory, Chrysler specs that the valve lash is done with the engine hot. That's not going to work for us, considering the motor was just all apart. So what I usually do is, for a spec like that, is when the engine warms up and gets to temperature, everything expands. So what happens is the gap gets tighter between the valve and the rocker arm. So what I usually do is I add 2,000s to that spec. So with the intake, it's 13 hot. So I'll go to 15 cold. And then with the exhaust, it's 21 hot. So I'll go to 23 cold. And we'll go from that. So what I usually do to adjust my valve lash is I rotate the engine to where, say, this exhaust valve is opening and it's almost all the way open. When that's almost all the way open, the valve is all the way down almost. And right before it starts coming back, I'll adjust the intake on that cylinder, because the intake will definitely be at the base circle, the lowest spot. Then after I do that, I'll make a mark, and then I'll rotate the engine again, and I'll go to the next one that has a rocker arm that's on its way down and adjust the other valve of that cylinder. It's a little bit more complicated to explain, but I can show you and you'll understand. So right here, we have this exhaust valve. It's on its way down right here. So what we're going to do is, since this exhaust valve is on its way down right now, right on its way down to open. I have all the spark plugs out still, so it's easy to rotate the engine. It's just starting to come up. So I'm going to go to the intake there, and I'm going to just check the intake and adjust that one. That one's pretty good. I've got it set by EI a little bit. Let's see here. Okay, so that intake is good. So what I'm going to do after adjusting it is I'm going to take my marker. I'm going to make a line right here on the valve cover rail. Just a little line. That lets me know that that one's adjusted. So then what I'm going to do on this side of the engine, since I'm working over here, I'm going to go around here, and here we go. This intake on 6 is on its way down. So there we go. I'm going to rotate the engine. Okay, now it's on its way up. So now I'm going to adjust the exhaust. Like I said, I'm going to adjust the exhaust at 23, which I have right here. So here we go. And the exhaust is a little tight. See, everybody thinks the valves loosen up when you get mileage on an engine. That's really not the case. What happens is the clearances will get tighter, because what happens is the valves seat lower and lower and lower in their seat. And as they get lower, the valve stem height comes up. When the valve stem height comes up, the rocker shaft, on this is a rocker shaft, stays stationary. So the gap gets tighter. Well, exhaust valves get a lot of abuse. There's a flame, they get flamed by, exhaust is going right by that thing. So they usually get tight. And if they get too tight, what happens is you will burn an exhaust valve, which is not good. So we're going to loosen it up. Okay. There we go. We're good there. That one's good. Like I said, these are basically friction nuts. There's no lock nut. Usually with a friction nut, with a non-friction nut, with a lock nut, I'd basically set the middle screw to adjust it, and then the last 16th of a turn the wrench and the socket the opposite way to lock it in. Okay, so that exhaust is set. So I'm going to make a Sharpie mark. Okay. So now I'll rotate the engine again. And I'll look. Okay. Number 4. intake. It's coming down. Oh, there it goes. It starts to come up. So now I'm going to adjust that exhaust. Again, like usual, exhaust is tight. Loosen it up a little bit. Bring it in. And there we go. That exhaust is set. I'll make a mark. I'll rotate the engine again. Okay, now this intake is going down. Just starting to come up. I'm going to check this exhaust. Oh, that one's pretty good, which happens. Okay, now some of them don't necessarily need to be adjusted. So I'm going to rotate the engine again after I make my mark. Okay. Now I have this exhaust on 4, just starting to come up. And I'll check that intake. This intake's a little loose, which can happen too. Like I said, these screws could sometimes back off too on these things. And just from normal wear and tear. Okay, that intake is set. Okay, do you understand what I'm doing now? Basically, whatever cylinder, remember you got cylinder 2, 4, 6, and 8. So if this valve is open, this intake valve is open, well, the exhaust valve is going to be closed. It has to be. So that's the one you adjust. So right now, this intake here is on its way down. And we're there. And then I'm going to take and adjust this exhaust. And again, it's tight. Okay, that exhaust is good now. Now we're going to rotate. Okay, so right here we have 8. Exhaust is all the way open. So I'm going to check this intake. And that intake is good. Take this. Okay, now we got this intake opening. Just starting to come back. And I'm going to check this exhaust. And that exhaust is good. Okay, so now we'll get the exhaust up on that one. It's just starting to come up. Now we'll just this intake. And that intake's a little loose. And that is good. And it looks like they're all adjusted. So this side is complete. Valve lash is done over here. And just time to move on to the next side. And same with the driver's side. Valve lash complete. Whenever I do valve cover gaskets on these tin covers, still have to clean them off. I always take these, put them on an anvil, take a ball bead hammer and hold this area where the bolts are on the anvil and tap around the bolt hole. Because over time, from people tightening the valve covers, what happens is these get pulled in. So if you just leave them pulled in and put new gaskets on, you know, you got a big dimple here. It's going to tighten up and the gasket's going to be, it's not going to seal because this is going to be lower than the rest of the cover. So basically you're just bringing it out and smoothing it to where you're getting the dimple out here where it's concave, you're making it flat again. Install the valve cover. Don't make things easy on these early A bodies. Okay, put the master cylinder back in. Put your push rods in there. Master cylinder, brake booster are all set. Now we're going to move on to the other side. And valve covers are in. Now we'll reinstall the ports. Plug wires are done. I'm going to start pulling this radiator out. Out with this. See right here, it was leaking right where the core meets the tank. So with this Radiator Sport, all these panels in here, all these panels were cut out. The factory ones came out and bulged out like this, moved close to the engine. It was set up for that small 18-inch radiator and all. So I made templates. And then made steel panels after I removed the stock ones. And then I welded them all in. And, you know, if you never knew what these cars were supposed to look like, you would never know I changed anything. But this allowed us to install a 26-inch radiator, you know, cross flow. And it was a lot easier to do than finding a correct radiator to fit the factory Radiator Sport wasn't going to happen. He had a heavy-duty radiator in there already, but it was 18-inch, didn't have enough area to it. All 63, actually, even the first one, 61, 2 and 3 and 4, the radiator was offset to line right up with that offset water pump on the slant 6. So cutting this out and redoing it to fit a large radiator just worked, and it came out pretty good. So the new radiator I got is made by Eastwood. The original radiator that was in that was a Griffith, but Griffith no longer makes that radiator with the welded on brackets on the side of it. This Eastwood radiator is the exact same dimensions. So it should go right in. The only thing is their side brackets aren't drilled, which is fine. I can line everything up and get it drilled and marked. As you can see, this radiator is pretty much the same. So let's see how it fits. I usually always leave the cardboard if it comes with it. If not, I usually put cardboard on them so you don't damage the core. It's very delicate. Let's see here. Okay. So we're pretty good there. What I am going to have to do is clearance the bottom here for the frame rail, because the frame rails, in between the frame rails on this, is 26 inches. Just over 26 and a half inches on these early A bodies. This 26-inch crossflow, which has a 22-inch core, will fit pretty well. So now let me just get it marked up and see where I need to cut. All marked. Trim it. Okay, so I've got the radiator all mocked up in here. It's all lined, all the holes are drilled for the mounting and everything. Now what I'm going to do is just pull this thing out and paint it radiator black. When you have a radiator, you just don't want to use regular black paint. You want to use paint that's made for radiators. Radiators expand and contract a lot. So you need paint that's going to do that. The other thing is that you want paint that is actually going to reject the heat. If you put any old paint on there, it's not necessarily going to be as efficient. I mean, if you're bare aluminum, it's the most efficient. Yes, bare copper too. This customer wants it black, so I'm going to paint it black, but specific radiator paint is what you should use. So that's what we'll be doing. So what I'm going to do is take the radiator out and get ready to paint it. Okay, now I'm going to install the radiator. It's all painted, all nice, all dried. Horns are in. Okay, we've got our radiator mounted. Install motor hose. Lower hose clamp is tight. We're good here. Oh yeah, that's right. I need to put his overflow container back in. It works. So we're all set up here. Gonna put it up in the air, put the sacrificial anode in the radiator to try to stop any corrosion from happening. Drain the oil out of it, put it back down to the ground, fill the cooling system, top off the oil, start her up. Putting the oil on the start. When I do my oil changes on this older stuff, I use VR1 Racing oil. It's high zinc, which is really good for these older engines with the flat tappet camshafts in it. This is a straight 40 weight. I use this on a lot of the older cars. Some cars with a fresher motor, I'll run 30 weight in, but 40 weight is pretty much the standard, a straight 40 weight. It's really good oil. I recommend it highly for anything with a flat tappet camshaft in it. Well, time to add the coolant. Got the heater hose right there, lightly unclamped. Let this all air bleed out. Again, distilled water, no tap water. Get some coolant there. No leaks. That's nice. Y'all remember the Mustang video. Coolant. Like I said, I usually run around 40% coolant, 60% water. Coolant's full. Let's start her up. Runs good. Nice and smooth. So that concludes that video. We did the valve seals on this, readjusted the valve lash due to the solid lifter camshaft that they use in these engines. Put the new radiator in there. Got her back together. She's ready to go. If there's any other videos you want me to do on any particular job on a car, let me know. Leave me a comment, message me. I'm open to doing anything anybody wants me to do car-wise here. But I'll be continuing to make videos of other cars that come in and out of the shop here for work. And, get on some more videos of my own cars. And start reviewing some other cars too that don't belong to me. So anyways, for now, I'm gonna let you go. See you in the next one.